The Faculty of Social Sciences Guild Committee, in partnership with the Guild External Affairs Committee, celebrates, acknowledges, and recognizes the Pink Warriors in October, which is highlighted as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Hence, we bring to you Pink Lemonade and Warriors, a social that incorporates conversation from breast cancer survivors, performances and acknowledgement from the Gentlemen Allies, and of course, participation from members of the UE Mona Guild. Ladies, gentlemen, warriors, sit back, relax, and enjoy Pink Lemonade and Warriors. Stacey Hines is a phenomenal pink warrior who is all working to become the highest, most fulfilled version of herself, and she expresses that in her own way. Through the use of creativity, innovation, and technology, she works with individuals and businesses to transform their nothing or their chaos into something epic. And while impactful market results are great, the most rewarding part to her is the individual and cultural transformation that takes place with the people. Stacey Hines believes everything starts and ends with people, and this is where she thrives. Stacey Hines is a transformation strategist and a tech boss working with a multi-million-dollar investment company. She's also the founder of Epic Transformation, where her focus is on helping individuals and businesses discover their potential to transform through strategic planning and mindfulness principles. She's also the chairwoman of 2 high-impact companies and the director of a tech innovation startup. She has created multiple transformation strategy programs that has allowed individuals, entrepreneurs, and corporate professionals to achieve their goals and the mindset to manage the challenges that occur on the transformation journey. Stacey is also the host of the Balanced Lady Boss podcast and has been a certified trainer since 1998. She's a certified mindset transformation coach and a mindfulness and evolving leadership consultant. And she enjoys being a mother of 3, as well as a public speaker and author. And she's a breast cancer and clinical depression survivor and an active yoga and mediation practitioner. Ladies, gentlemen, warriors, please welcome the phenomenal Stacey Hines.
Hi everyone, I'm Stacey Hines, and I'm really pleased to be able to share with all of you today. And I am in particular sensitive about this area and really keen on being able to spread whatever advice, awareness, insight, as well as some of the real about breast cancer and the journey that you may take on as either somebody that is has the disease or somebody that is also journeying as a supporter or caregiver for someone who has the disease. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 34 in 2010. And this was during a very tumultuous time in my life. And I feel that in many ways, I really needed to step away from the way that I was living my life and from the things that I think were foremost in my everyday. And cancer allowed me to do that. It's not necessarily the best way to access time for yourself and to access self-reflection and really connecting with yourself, but that is the path that was presented to me. And while I will say that I didn't necessarily love having to take the path, it has also been the biggest catalyst for change in my life and the ultimate turning point for creating a life that has been really wonderful and has shifted the trajectory of how I see myself and the role I have as a human being, and also the way that I see others and their influence over my life while I'm on this earth journey. So I have 3 children, and I am also divorced, and I'm also a mental wellness survivor, because there were so many different things happening at the time of my cancer diagnosis. I was in the middle of the company that I worked with was being sold. And so I was in the middle of moving countries. I was also in the middle of a separation from my then husband. My kids were between the ages of 2 and I think, what was it, 2 and 6. And so I was at a very, what you would say, it's one of those moments where life is supposed to be settling down, and instead my life was kind of getting more agitated and more challenging, which I think in and of itself was somewhat of a blessing because I had to rise to the occasion of cancer. In moving countries, it allowed me to separate myself from my loved ones. Now, for many people, that may seem like a little bit crazy, but the truth is that I was actually in need of my own cave moment. And in other instances where I speak about cancer, I talk about having this cave moment because I felt the need to be by myself, to really find myself, to really connect with my body and my mind and my soul. I felt the need to understand why it is that I was brought to this challenge and really understand what kind of life I wanted to create for myself on the other side of it. I went through different types of treatment. I had a radical mastectomy, and I also went through reconstruction. I did radiotherapy for a while, for a couple of months there, and I opted out of doing chemotherapy, even though it was something that my doctors put as a requirement. I also opted out of doing the post-therapy hormone treatments, which was also a requirement. So basically, them throw the book at me and say, I have to do everything. Because I was so young and I didn't match up in any of the percentages. There was no history of cancer in my family. I had breastfed all my children. And so it just didn't make sense. I was relatively fit. I ate well. And so they wanted to make sure that they zapped it, right? With all the different things. But for me, I was concerned about the impact of the different medications that were being recommended. And I was also concerned about, what that meant for my lifestyle in the midst of becoming now a single mom and having to make that transition. And I was very scared, to be quite honest. I was afraid. And in order for me to navigate that fear, I wanted to take my treatment somewhat into my own hands. And so I took on consulting with different doctors. And while they gave me that preferred recommendation, I also asked them to give me alternate recommendations. So I chose not to do chemotherapy. They said, okay, well, if you don't do chemo, then we really highly, highly recommend that you definitely do radiotherapy based on the stage of the cancer and the type of cancer. And we definitely think you need to treat the hormonal space because I was hormone positive type of cancer as well. And so what I opted to do was I opted to do the radiotherapy. And then I really started to step into alternative therapy methods. So I took on self-care practices like acupuncture, massage, and I also shifted my lifestyle to be predominantly vegan. So I actually went liquid vegan initially. And after deciding to take that route, I had a nutritionist that was cooking for me. I was primarily having soups and juices that were made from herbs and natural things. We would go to like the farmer's market and buy different types of things and make my food every single day. So I used to get these big thermoses and I'd walk around my thermos. My thermos would be breakfast and, well, more so dinner and lunch. And then I would have these big jugs, these big bottle jugs of juice that I would drink. And I did that for 3 months. And then coming out of that, I was predominantly vegan until I started having fish again. And all of this was happening between 3 countries, guys. Like I was literally between Jamaica, Atlanta, which is my home, and Canada, which is where I was in the middle of moving to because of this company. So me, I'm a tree picking them and this back and forth thing, and this, it was just, And it was an unfortunate adventure, is what I call it. And at the same time, as I said before, the biggest and most rewarding catalyst for change in my life. So 10 years later, or actually it's 11 years later now, I am still working quite a bit, probably more than I would like. I have written a memoir. Can't really see it with the background blur, but it's called 5 Year Love Affair. It's my memoir, and it's available on Amazon for those of you who are interested. And it is my journey of how cancer, divorce, and depression taught me self-love and created life transformation for me. And in the book, I actually write a combination of the story. I also have some letters that I shared with a friend that was in prison at the time. And I also have quite a few poems, which I'm going to read one of those poems for you before I close out. The second thing that I created coming out of this experience was a deck of daily affirmation cards called intention cards. My intention cards are magical for me. It's not something that I've never been a creative person, so it's not something that I would say I was a natural at, but it's certainly something that has changed not just my life, but the lives of many others, primarily women, but even some men. And I'm really proud of the work that has come out of the journey, in particular, the cards and the book. Right. I actually usually use the cards quite a bit whenever I am presenting or speaking, or in some instances. But for this particular discussion, I wanted to just share around the book and one of the poems in the book. And lastly, one of the third things that was created is my social impact company called Balanced Lady Boss. And it's all about helping professional women who are seeking ways to thrive and have success without the stress and without the toxic relationships, and certainly without illness. And that Balanced Lady Boss community includes a podcast that is available anywhere podcasts are listened to. It also includes lots of online courses that talk about transforming your life. I have a workbook on life transformation. So all of these different things were birthed out of my cancer journey. I've also given multiple talks on cancer and cancer awareness. And so why I'm sharing all of this with you guys is not really a brag bag, because I don't think that's necessary, but it's to show you that even some of the darkest times in your life, when you hit the bottom of the barrel and you feel like, say, Lord, we can't manage, there's no light in my dark tunnel, there is always light available to you. You just have to decide that you want to see it. And there is always something waiting. There's a purpose waiting on the other side of this experience for you. So for me, what cancer is an opportunity for you to access yourself, and an opportunity for you to access a greater connection with your purpose that you are meant to share with everybody else. All right. So I hope that those words will guide you just a little bit. I'm going to share just a poem before I leave. So I'm looking through my book now here, trying to find one. I'm trying to think of which one will pop up. I have, I think, about 10 or 11 poems in here, maybe 12, that I could share from. And I think I'll just choose the one that maybe pops up first. But I really wish for all of you that are experiencing your own journey with cancer now, that you take it in stride and trust that each journey is its own. So no matter how many people share and say, this is what I went through, and you must do this and you have to do that, and as you are guided, your intuition will tell you, your intuition will say to you, what you are to do with and for yourself. Listen to your doctors and also trust your intuition. Trust that part of you that is speaking to you and that is telling you the path that you should take. Okay. So the poem that I'm going to read on from when I was doing radiation. So radiation or radiotherapy was actually a bigger beast than I thought it would be. And so I was a bit surprised about the experience that I had. And I wrote about it in this poem. The poem is called Me and the Machine. It was always cold in that room. I walked in not knowing what was waiting on the other side. The cold, empty hallway with chairs for each of us to reside until it was my turn with the machine. I felt dead inside each time. I created that. It was hard to be there. It was hard to be still on the steel concrete bed. I would cry just about every time. Those quiet tears that only rolled down my face to the side that I was lying on. It had a way that it needed me to be. Not even in that way could I choose how I lay. It had to have its way or nothing at all. And sometimes my body just wouldn't cooperate, wouldn't want to lie still in that state. And yet we'd have to keep going, me and the machine. It burned me slowly, more and more each day, without mercy, really. But I guess there probably shouldn't be any mercy. Sometimes I would beg for that. How else will you survive, I would say. Chosen to deal with, accept it. My brown skin became dark brown, then black, then char. And my scars became silent background noise. It was nothing like they said it would be. And every scary unknown was just another possibility. Routine almost, rudimentary. I negotiated a day or two just to breathe and still had to have more time with that machine. Even now, the shades of darkness remain, a permanent reminder of our time together, me and the machine. And when it was over, I found out it may never really be. Only a reduction in numbers, but no guarantee. And so we begin again. It was always cold in that room. Thank you so much, and safe travels for all of you.
So we're back with Pink Lemonade and Warriors. We just heard from the phenomenal Stacey Hines, and now we're going to be zooming into a little bit of a conversation. We want to have a one-on-one chat with someone to know what it is to be a Pink Warrior, to know what it is to be on the battlefield and to win that battle. And so this evening, joining us is the amazing, the superb, the exquisite Dorothy Satchel, the founder of the Mixie Blue Foundation, and she's going to be here giving us our story. So, Miss Satchel, how are you feeling today?
Oh, my darling, how are you? I'm absolutely fantastic, and I feel so thrilled to be here with you today.
I'm so grateful for that opportunity. Just to start off a little bit, I want to know how long has it been that you battled breast cancer? When did you know that you have breast cancer? And at what age did you find out that you had breast cancer? Where were you at that point when you had breast cancer? Before we go into the nitty-gritty of the story.
Okay. I was actually diagnosed in 2011. I had my formal diagnosis was around about March of 2011, but right. I knew I had cancer from about January, the end of January, thereabouts. But I didn't formalize it because I'm one of those persons who felt that I had to accept what was happening with me first, because right. The signs were there, and I knew in my heart, this is just about aligning yourself with your gut feelings. I knew.
Absolutely.
But with me, in order for me to deal with something, I have to accept it. And I had a lot of deliberations before I actually accepted that this was what was happening to me. But actually confirmed in March of 2011. So, and where I was actually in Jamaica at the time, because having been in England for years, just before then, I decided that I was going to go back to Jamaica to sort of relaunch. I had gone through some real stressful, and the weather was getting to me. Probably I was getting old at 43, 40, 40, 43, 42. So I thought I would go back to Jamaica and see if I could relaunch myself. And I got to Jamaica on the 27th of November.
Right.
And then by January, I had almost end-stage cancer. And incidentally, in November, I had also done a mammogram that showed that all was well. So I actually started on my journey in March of 2011.
Right. So with that being said, that you had to take some time to say to yourself, listen, Dorothy, you actually do have cancer. Do you think that's something that is normal amongst women? Do they take a time? Do they really actually need to take some time to cope with the fact that they are breast cancer victims?
I think it is very important because some persons, I mean, sometimes we get very judgmental with ladies, even men who said, you think more or less that they are delaying their treatment or they're not even going for it. That place where you're at, where you need to accept that you have breast cancer, because accepting breast cancer, it means accepting a mammoth of information. It's accepting the fact that depending on where you're coming from in your headspace, that you could die. Accepting the fact that you may be losing a part of your body and probably the most loved part of your body. That you may be losing persons in your lives, your partner, you know, and therefore it's a lot to take on. For you to go to the doctor and get other diagnosis, you have other issues to deal with, but for somebody to tell you that you have cancer, whether it's breast cancer or whatever, but for women, so much for us, it is through the breast that we give life to our children. Yes, it is one of the parts of your body that your partner goes for, you know, and ladies themselves, because I think I had the cutest breast ever. And I thought that my breast had betrayed me. How dare you? You get me? So you have to deal with, it's like a friend had betrayed you and you had all of that dynamics to deal with. And if you don't accept and get to that place where you're able to confront, then guess what happened? Your treatment is going to have a different ending.
Right. And so
it's like you've been in denial, really.
Exactly.
And so it does take a while before you leave that stage of denial. It does take a while before you say to yourself that, listen, this is what is happening and I need to accept it. I need to go with it. So in regards to that, the fact that you have now accepted it, how does it work in terms of family members? When you hear about the fact that this is a battle that you're going to be going through, how does it work when you have to break it to your friends and to your family members that, listen, you know, I have breast cancer and I really and truly have to go now and see how best we can attack this situation? Family themselves take the time to accept that this is something that a family member is going to be struggling with.
One of the things that we have to look at is I had like 2 months to deal with the fact that I had this challenge in front of me. I also had to accept was that you, my friends, my family, you never knew. And the same way that I need time to deal with it, they are going to need time to deal with it. And I remember at some point my sister used to say to me, remember, this is news for us. It's not news for you. Because you chose to keep it from us. You get me?
Yes.
And it is the same. I tend to compare it with grieving. Some people will get over their grief in a month and some people will take years. And there is no rule, there's no text that says that it is a month or it's a year. It all depends on you, the individual, okay? But what you need to do is not to procrastinate, you know? Absolutely. And I am always a solution-oriented person. I do not believe in sitting around at a stoplight and waiting for any color to change because I'm always green.
That's right.
You get? So, and that the minute I accepted that I had cancer, I took my book and paper, and I started. My doctor had hell dealing with me because when I went to him for him to even, because I got the initial diagnosis in Jamaica, then I came to England and they did over the mammogram, the ultrasound, and the biopsy. And when I went in to have a discussion with my doctor for him to confirm that I had cancer, I had 3 sheets of paper. And he had to say to me, Dorothy, I am not there as yet. I said, well, you're not the one with cancer. So this is how we are going to work it. I started to tell him how we were going to work it. And that was the attitude I had from the moment I got it in my head that I had cancer. I had paper, and guess what happened? There was nothing on the sideline that could distract me, because I had made up my mind that I was going to fight this. I was going to win this. I had discussed it with God, and I had said to God, anything that it takes for me to survive, as long as you make me one promise, I shall live, I shall not die. And I know that I was going to live, and I was not going to exist. I was going to live. And that was the attitude I had for the 18 months of my treatment, from start to finish, and never quivered. Not one day in my treatment did I ever experience fear. I got angry, I got disappointed, I had hallucinations out of that, but not one day did I ever experience it. Not everybody can do it, but that is how I survive. That's the same attitude that I had towards work. That's the same attitude I had towards other illnesses that I had before cancer. And that is the same attitude I have towards even until now. If I tell myself there, I don't allow anything else to distract me. If death comes, then guess what happened? We are going to fight going down in that 6 foot.
That's right. Understood completely. And so I have a question for you, Miss Dorothy, following that. You talk about the fact that you said to yourself that you're not going to die, you don't want to have any fear. And you're going to be entering this particular treatment, which we know is something that it's sometimes one of the most horrible things people can go through at one point. So what is it? What is one thing that you wish you knew before you started treatment, before you went on this battlefield? What is one thing you wish you knew before you started?
I remember there was one day when I was traveling to the hospital, and I do a lot of self-talk, and I asked myself, how is it that you're able to manage this level of pain? Because if you had asked me before whether I could, because I thought with all the illnesses that I had before cancer, I never understood my threshold for pain. And then I can tell you the exact spot where I was on the road the day on route to the hospital when it hit me in my face. Like, how the hell are you doing this? And I think when it comes down to your threshold is because sometimes we put limitations on ourselves. And when you get yourself in certain circumstances, you can't swim, but you find yourself in the ocean and you get out.
Right.
And that was it with me, that I found out is it strength within that I had. And I believe that had a lot to do with how I got out at the other end. Because a lot of time we don't believe in our own strength. We limit ourselves. And I think if we do less of that, it makes the journey lighter. Because in my trepidation was, I have lupus, I have asthma, I have rheumatism, I have Raynaud's phenomena, right? And all of those are autoimmune diseases. And with my previous knowledge about cancer, I knew for somebody to have all of that and to have a win at the end of the battle, it had to be something that had to have divine intervention in it.
Right.
How unwell I was prior to cancer, and therefore persons who probably stayed away from me stay away because they knew that no matter how dark, she ain't gonna do this one because this is just too much.
Right. Understood. And then when we talk about persons who stayed away and things like that, I want to know in particular, when we hear good news, we tend to jump and scream and dance around. And when we tend to hear bad news, we tend to cry, we tend to feel mopey and things like that. And what I want to know in particular, Miss Satchel, how did you feel when you first received the news that you were we know that you had it prior, you knew prior before you had the formal sense that, you know, you had breast cancer. But how did you feel when you first came to that conclusion, or when the conclusion arrived that, listen, this is breast cancer?
You know, I never thought about me. When I had the official confirmation, I thought about my son. And I said rather than saying what I had to do for me, I had to think that I have to do this for Mario.
Right.
He was the first person that came to my mind. And because I know my child so much, and I knew where he was at, I knew that without me, there would be no Mario.
Right.
And therefore, I think for most of my treatment, if not all of it, I became a third person. It was never me who had cancer. I was supporting my third person through cancer, not me. And that was how I survived, because I had to support this person who needed to be at the end of a journey.
Right.
And I don't know, I do not want to call it denial, because it wasn't, but it was my strategy of survival.
Wonderful.
Because historically for me, I am a caring mother hen type of person. I have always done better looking after persons than how I look after myself. And therefore, I had to find that other self within me to look after the person in order for me to be successful at it.
Understood. And this is our last question, wrapping up about you know, life before breast cancer. When you heard the news, you know, you tend to process it and such. But what was something that you learned about yourself after you got diagnosed with breast cancer? What is something that you learned about yourself, about Dorothy, after the diagnosis was made?
We often tell people or hear people talk about everybody is born with a purpose, and that we are gifted and all of that.
Right.
I think I've always been told that I was special, and I always think it was something funny and laughed off. But I think that was when it came home to me that it could actually be true. And that was when I started to have that conversation with God. And I said, I wasn't sure if this gift that I have was for me, or if it was for the purpose of somebody else, or a combination. But I think that was when I got to the point where I knew I was an instrument and I couldn't afford to fail.
That's right. Understood.
It comes with a lot of responsibility. It comes with a lot of responsibility. But I think I was confronted with that at that time. And it was something that it was heavy, and but it never gave you the opportunity to ask why. It's just that you were given a task and you're going to do it. And you know you couldn't afford to fail.
That's right.
You know, failure would mean death. And I wasn't ready for that.
I agree 100%. So here we've talked about, you know, life before the battle, and now we want to zoom in on you during the battle. And we know for a fact that your treatment was 18 months. That's what you had stated earlier. And I wanted to know in particular, Ms. Satchel, what was one of the most difficult parts of that particular journey? Where in that journey were you at one point at your low and you decided, I don't think I can go any further? Nonetheless, you overcome, but what was one of those difficult moments? Like, could you share that with us?
When I started chemotherapy, Because number one, from the day I found out I had cancer, I said it to myself, I said it to everybody who would listen to me. I was not going to do chemotherapy. And the day when I went to my doctor to diagnose me, I said, I am except chemotherapy. But therapy and the steroids and whatever that came with it, I had gotten to that point where I was in so much pain and discomfort and hallucination and a combination of all those negativities that there was a period of time when every night, you know how you say your prayers before you go to your bed?
Right.
When my prayer was, I repeatedly said to God that I had had enough.
Mm-hmm.
I had done enough, and I did not want to find myself in the position where I would have to kill myself, because that would be contrary to my Christian belief. So I said to God, I want you to take me. And every morning I would get up and be confronted with life. And I would have that argument with God to ask him, why did you then give me another day? I told you last night that was it. And over, every day I would ask him the question. But then every day when we get to that point when frustration would have been at an ultimate level, something phenomenal would have happened that you could see God at work, where you had to take a step back and said and accept that he knew what he was doing more than what you desired. And as I think the hardest part was, I never wanted my family, especially my child, to have to live with the fact that your mother took her life.
Right.
So therefore, I put it into God's hand, and I said, I want you to do this to end it, because it had gotten just too much. But he never did. And the fact that he never did, I accepted it was for a reason. And
that's right.
I lived to see what was it that he was going to do tomorrow.
And you know, this is one of the questions that I'd want to know in particular, in your own opinion, because here we're talking about the fact that you wanted to give up, you wanted God to just take you and call it a day. And you know, it's somewhat of a feeling of discouragement. You can't go any further, and it's you gave up, basically. You would give up. And do you believe that's one of the things that happen a lot to many of our warriors who lost the battle, is that they themselves said, it's too much and I have to give up?
It's too much in a lot of ways. Sometimes I'm going to jump the gun very, very far right now. Mm-hmm. I was at home one night. As a matter of fact, I was in England, so you know the time difference in Jamaica was like 6 hours.
Right.
And my phone rang, and a lady was on the other end, and she said, she just, hello. She never told me her name. She just asked me if this is Misty Blue, because the name of the foundation is Misty Blue. And I said, yes. So she said, oh, I'm just calling to tell you that I'm going to kill myself. And I said, oh, so how do you propose to do that? What's your preferred way of doing that? And I could literally hear when she pulled in her breath, because I knew there and then that this was somebody who was in ambivalence. Yes. Right. And she said, well, I never thought about it. So I said, oh, do you want us to talk about it then? And I said, okay, what would you want to do? Do you want it slow or do you want it fast? Because it's me trying to get her outside of where she was at. And then when we explored and she couldn't come up with a method as to how she wanted to die, I said, okay, let us then speak about why is it that you want to die? And she said, because I was just diagnosed with breast cancer. I said, oh. So, and you think that your treatment option is death? And she said yes, and I asked her why, and it was because she thinks she was going to be such a burden to her daughter. Her daughter had wanted so much in life to move forward, and she had just gotten a scholarship, just moved to Canada, just got the job of her life.
Right.
Now call her and tell her that I have cancer.
That's true.
I want to die. So I said, so I said, so have you told your daughter that? And she said, no. I said, but why not? she wants me to tell. I said, but I don't want to die. You want to die. So what I want you to think about, what do you think your daughter would prefer? For somebody to call her and tell her that you had killed yourself, or for you to call you have cancer? And she broke down, and we spoke for about 3 hours that night. And the end of that is her daughter flew down from Canada, and she had begged me to come to Jamaica so I could be there when she was doing her surgery. I stayed on the phone with her until she went into theater and all of that. And she did the surgery. And this is where the pain and the agony comes in, because I was able to accept mine immediately. Other persons didn't do it until long afterwards. Right. And that was big to me. That is something that is why it is so essential to have that support system in place when it comes down to having a cancer diagnosis.
Understood and agreed. So here is a question now, Miss Dorothy. You know, this is you've given us basically an example or a scenario or one of the stories of one of the women who went through breast cancer, wanted to kill herself because her concern was more so her family, you know, not being able to cope with what is happening. And so what I want to know is, family members are often the ones who cannot cope with it more so. And what is it that you would recommend, you know, or what is it that you would say to family members? What would Pink Warriors require of them during their going through treatment? Meaning, what would we want you to do? How can you support us? You know, instead of being the type to fall apart and cry, what exactly would you say is necessary from family members during treatment?
One of the things that I wish we had as part of the support system in Jamaica, part of the health service, what the Ministry of Health offers, so charitable organization like Missy Blue, every family who gets a cancer diagnosis should go through counseling before they do anything, before they start treatment. Right. The patient and the immediate family members and possible friends, you need to get some form of counseling. And it is crucial to how you go through the process and what happens at the end. Because a lot of time, you think that you care about me, you want to support me. Mm-hmm. And but guess what happened? There is no test out there as to how everybody who gets a diagnosis is going to feel. Right. And you love and care for me, and the first thing that you're going to hug me and say, you understand how I feel. How the hell do you understand how I feel? Did you get a diagnosis? Have you? And even if you have had cancer, your cancer experience is completely different from mine. That's my sister, same mother, same father, she had cancer just before I did, but it did not give me that right to say that I understand how she's feeling. That's right. Experience is different from mine. It may, well, we had, the tumor was at the same spot. It was estrogen positive. Yes, it was in my left breast. It was at the same spot. There were so many similarities between my sister and mine in terms of physical similarities. But where we were in our headspace, it was so distant apart, you know? Right. And how it is different from how she reacted to it. How she shared the information with her daughter was completely different from how I shared with my son. Mm-hmm. Because our interpretation is different. Your capacity to carry pain is different from my capacity to carry pain. And the things that is your strength may very well be my weakness. And so it is very important that as a family, as a support group, we all need to subject ourselves to counseling, because that will then allow us in our zest to help, not to hurt in the process. Right. Oh, you know somebody who had cancer and this is what they did, so you should do it. Because Because one of the things when you get a diagnosis, everybody knows the solution.
That's
for
so
you.
true. That is so true.
Bombarded with so many things. And if I choose to do what you say and not what Mary said, then you get offended.
Problem.
Yeah. And therefore, and the personality that you have. I remember there was a male friend of mine. We used to talk about everything. And when I got cancer, I never heard from him. And I messaged him one day and I said, have you heard? And he responded one word, yes. And for the 18 months I went through treatment, he never called me. And then one day towards the end of it, I texted him and I said, did you really hear that I was unwell? And he said, yes, but I did not know what to say to you. And I did not speak to him for about 4 years, if not more. Because as far as I'm concerned, I did not know what to say to you either.
Right.
Because if we were friends, we used to talk about everything. And because I have cancer, you don't know what to say to me. So why should I know what to say to you? Until I confronted him one day and we had our thing and we start over. And that is a lot of challenge that persons have. Sometimes it's with your partner, sometimes it's with your children, sometimes it's with your friends, because you start seeing yourself as a lesser person, especially as a woman. I have one person who is in my cancer foundation. She had big boobs. And when she got her diagnosis, all her husband said, me is a breast man, so make sure you not take off my breasts. Yeah. So she went and she took the breast off. And the day he went to the hospital and he picked her up, took her home, put down her suitcase, took up his. He said, I don't know how to deal with this handicap thing, And a lot of persons will think that he's the most cruel man on earth. It's cold, but guess what happened? If he had gotten counseling as to the difference it was going to make, would his reaction have been different? I had another girlfriend, her kids got angry because she was big boob. So when she took one breast off, the whole symmetric of your chest changed. So rather than having one breast on the right and the left, it was more in the center. And when friends came around, they got angry that their mother was presenting herself that was how they were wired in their heads, because their mom used to be this lovely, attractive woman who now have this big thing in the center of her chest rather than having two lovely boobs.
Right.
And you think that the children were horrible. My son asked me, why won't you die and let's get over this thing? Was it that my child wanted me to die? Absolutely not. But that is where the whole psychological support comes into play for family members, friends, to deal with it when somebody has a cancer diagnosis, and especially a woman who is going to be taking her breast off. There's so many issues that are at play. It's not just you having a physical diagnosis where you lose your physical breast, but you lose your femininity. You have women after taking off the breast, they see themselves less as a woman. And I had one man 18 years after his wife took off his breast, he said, because I remember when I was going to do mine, I said to him, what does your wife's breast look like? Because I was trying to imagine what is going to look like with one breast. He said, I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? She's your wife. She took her breast off 18 years. He said, I have never looked at her in 18 years. He said, I have never seen my wife naked in 18 years. Never, because I don't want to see it. He said, I have something in my head as to what she looked like before she took it off. And I make it a point of my duty. The only time we're intimate, it has to be in the dark because I don't want to see it. And that is his dilemma that he has to deal with. But what is it that that woman has to deal with where her husband doesn't want to look at her anymore?
That's right.
And those are all the dynamics that women have to deal with. And that is why I have such strong feelings about people who object to women having reconstructive surgery. It is not a cosmetic surgery. It is something necessary for her to deal with so that she can carry on her life as it was before. Because it's not that she wants to be a beauty pageant person. Right. It is something that is crucial, and it has her psyche going forward. And those are some of the discussions that we need to have. A woman has cancer, which whether it's breast or whatever, and she does chemotherapy, she loses her hair. And the minute one strand of hair grows back, oh, so you better know. Because once my hair starts growing back, then everything else has grown back. Not. I am 10, 11 years after my treatment, and the journey continues. There are still things that I have to deal with and cope with and adjust my mind. You get me? Yeah. So it is just process having that sort of understanding as to how you move forward.
Understood completely. All right, so we had the conversation about how important it is for family members to actually support you when you're going through your treatment, when you're going through your battlefield. And then we want to look at something as well. We want to look at how can we support our own. How do Pink Warriors support Pink Warriors during their fight against breast cancer? And so I want to know how important it is for breast cancer patients or breast cancer survivors rather, both at the matter of fact, to be a part of a support group, to be a part of a team, to be a part of a family, to encourage and motivate each other.
It is crucial in the process because one of the things that I've found is when you are going through the process and you find somebody who had been there, who had gone through what you are now experiencing, maybe at that point where you said, no, I can't do this, I'm going to give up. And somebody might be able to say to you, guess what happened? I was at that stage.
That's right.
To me, you can do it. I will hold your hand. I'll be here for you because I can relate to where you're at because I was there at one point and I had that feeling, but guess what happened? I overcome. And we can do it together. You get me? This is the whole team thing and support and it does make a lot of difference.
Right. Understood. And I agree 100%. And then here is the situation. We have discovered, so we went through family members, we went through our very own breast cancer warriors, and now the question is, what advice would you as a breast cancer survivor give to the public regarding breast cancer awareness or breast health awareness as a matter of fact?
It is unfortunate that the populace still believe that breast cancer is something that happened to other ladies. And unfortunately also, the thought is that it never becomes personal until it becomes personal, until it gets on your veranda. That's true. And I want us to start looking at breast cancer as something that can happen to any of us at any time, at any amount of time, because you can't think that because you had it at age 35, that has been it. Mm-hmm. Can come back at 40 or age 70. Right. So a constant awareness to say that we were born at risk for this thing. Right. It is not an exclusive club that where you are punished because you did something wrong. All of us are at risk to have cancer, to have breast cancer, and therefore the vigilance should be in accordance with all of us, where together we can overcome and we can fight.
Right, so here's the thing now, Auntie Dorothy. So we have realized that there's a conversation happening now about breast cancer, from whether it is the warriors or those who are allies of the warriors. But the conversation is happening. It's happening now much better than it used to happen before. And so, however, even though this conversation is happening, it is somewhat situated more in urban areas. And so we find that women who are living in urban areas who are breast cancer patients have a lot more support or a lot more voice than those who are actually in the rural area. You being a woman from the rural area can
country girl can
testify to that. And so the question that I have is, what advice would you give to the public, or even so how would you advise everybody, say to the public overall, on how best to bring light to the situation that is happening in rural areas for women who are battling with breast cancer, because I know for a fact that the support there is not as strong as it is in urban areas. Financial support, family support, emotional support is lacking in rural areas. And so we have a one foundation or two foundations, such as the Mitzi Blue Foundation, your foundation, as well as the Janet Kalu Breast Cancer Foundation. We're trying to bring awareness and bring voice there in rural areas. So how would you go about, or how would you recommend we go about bringing light to women or the pink warriors in the rural areas?
You know, I could almost hug you. You take a virtual hug for that one. You get me?
Thank you. I'm sending one right now.
Let us start from policymakers, right? You find even from the kitty where government is going to be disbursing funds, it seems as if when it gets to Spur Tree, he would stop. Or when it gets to Long Hill, it doesn't get down to the country parts. And it is so in it because poverty is one of those. Education is just not there, and the misconstrued idea is that persons don't want to, but it's because they're not exposed to it.
That's true.
And what happened is that you find that it is so unfortunate that you have a sector, though it is a minuscule number of persons within rural, use the services and the resources, especially human resources of the poor, of the disenfranchised, to sort of help in their enterprise. But let's take, for example, you have a company and you employ 50 women, okay? And I would say to you, do something to support your women, like giving them some time off, giving them insurance, so that if they should have an illness, if they should have breast cancer, rather than what exists, for example, in smaller now, where persons have to travel to Montego Bay. I got to the point where I got mammogram vouchers that I gave to ladies to travel to Montego Bay to go and get their mammogram done.
Right.
You know them. They sold the
mammogram vouchers.
Because they said it was between me going to do a mammogram and me getting voted. Or is it survival? You get Kingston, you have a University of the West Indies, you have Jubilee, you have KPH, you have all those other places, plus you have charitable organization that supports. When you go down to the country,
nothing like
for example, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, so when I go back to Westmoreland, which is my parish, and I look at Savannah Hospital, and what is it in terms of medical equipment that we have to treat and care for women with breast cancer? It's almost nothing. If you look at specialist doctors, nurses, support team, the doctors just don't talk about having cancer psychologists and stuff like that. Have those resources, we're surviving. And that is why you have so many women in Westmoreland being diagnosed with breast cancer and dying from breast cancer, because the resources are not there, the medical resources are not there, and the personnel are not there. Mr. Blue Cancer Care Foundation has been there since 2015. Every year we have at least 8 health fairs across the parish where we go out. And what we have found is not that these women do not want to be tested. It is because they don't have the resources. They do not have the necessary information. They don't have the knowledge base. and therefore they die. And my thing is that these people are dying not so much from cancer, but they're dying from deprivation. They're dying because they're poor. They're dying because resources are not being put in place for them to get the requisite care that they want to survive. They do not have the knowledge. They do not understand about nutrition. They do not understand about self-care. They do not understand about awareness of their bodies. And that is why I believe where Jamaica in particular is at now, every parish in Jamaica, at the very least, should have one charitable organization that looks specifically at cancer. Because when you look at the amount of diagnosis and mortality that we have as it relates to cancer, the need is there. I live in the UK, and right now, the last time when I checked, there was 278 registered charitable organizations specifically for cancer. And look at England's budget. And if England can see the need to have 278 registered charities that deals with cancer, why Jamaica must have 2 or 3? Sure. Have the resources, and therefore we are the ones who will have even a greater need to have a support system or a greater support system. Because unfortunately, our government doesn't have the resources to put in place for us to get what is it that the other doctors spoke about that they have. We don't have it. And that is why I had to run away from Jamaica and come back to England to have my cancer treatment. Because that was part of how I survived.
Right. I understand, and I agree completely. And it's something that, you know, we really actually need to look into. Because like I said, I too am a country girl, born and raised in Westmoreland, and I spent the rest of my life in St. Elizabeth. And it's something that I actually come from Kilmarnock, up in the rural areas. So, and I actually learned about a breast cancer foundation when I was in 5th form, almost leaving high school. I found out that we actually have a cancer foundation, or it's somewhat a foundation here in St. Elizabeth. And I went to a very prominent high school, so it's not as if the information isn't there, it's just that the information isn't being spread and people aren't aware. And so what happens is that we don't have the information, we don't have the education, and so we don't know how to act. And it happens it's not just for women, but men nonetheless, children nonetheless. We're not aware of the information as much as because information is not being promoted and distributed in the rural areas as it is in the urban areas. And so I'm glad that you brought light to that. And you know, we're ending our conversation, and I wanted to ask a very special, I want to do a short little activity with you before we go. And this is basically a charge to all the pink warriors out there on the battlefield. And I'm going to play I'm going to do a little activity with you, and we call it When In. And so this is to all the pink warriors there. If you're fighting breast cancer, if you're a survivor of breast cancer, if you have a family member who is now battling with breast cancer, or if you have lost a family member to breast cancer, this is our charge to you. And Auntie Dorothy, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do When In. So I'm going to ask you something, when in something, and I want you to respond and say, you do something. So for example, I say, when in doubt, you say, ask. All right, look at that. So we're on a ball. So we're going to do 5. We're going to do 5. Let's start. When in fear,
Think positively.
When in doubt,
Ask somebody for help.
when in trouble,
Seek help.
when in your wrongs,
Seek the right.
and when you're down.
Look at the up.
Okay. And so this is our charge to all you pink warriors out there. Miss Dorothy Satchwell, the founder of the Mitzi Blue Cancer Foundation, is out here serving and advocating for all the women in the rural area who are battling with breast cancer. Auntie Dorothy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming out here, educating, giving us your testimony, telling us what you've been through, and highlighting that this is what others go through on a daily, and how you stay positive throughout it all. And just for those who don't know, we have celebrated Pink Friday, And so it's all about coming out in your pink. And if you're looking directly at Dorothy Satchel, you realize that she's wearing her pink wig out and about, looking like the true diva that she is. And look at that! You're finished?
Okay, yeah, I'm done now. Yeah.
All right then. And so, ladies and gentlemen who are watching us, we want to remind you that you are not alone. We're giving you raw, we're giving you real, we're giving you the true story, we're giving you pink lemonade and warriors. And we're not finished. No, we're not finished. Right after this, we have the true gentlemen allies who are out here rallying with us women, who are going to be giving us some true performances that they want to use to motivate the warriors who are on the battlefield or the warriors who have survived the fight. Auntie Dorothy, do you have anything else that you'd like to say to everyone before you go?
Anybody who have gone through who is going through breast cancer or any cancer, just remember there's always somebody there who's gonna love you through it. Yes, and once you have somebody to love you through it, you'll do it. Yeah, and there's always gonna be somebody there. All right. So that's it. I'm gonna love you through it.
All right, and thank you, Auntie Dorothy. That was Dorothy Satchel, founder of the Mixed Blue Cancer Foundation, and that was our conversation with a true pink warrior. Thank you so much for paying attention to this section, and we'll see you in the next section where the gentlemen allies will be out performing for the pink warriors. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome Dr. Vidal and Dr. Robinson. It's an absolute pleasure to have you both today here, especially as men. It is very important to talk about your participation and your significance in treating breast cancer and enlightening our faculty and our school cohorts about what is breast cancer, the treatment options available, and all the aspects of breast cancer that we need to know. So we are just going to get right into it, and my first question today is for Dr. Robinson. Could you just give us a brief synopsis of what breast cancer is in layman terms?
Thank you again for having me here. I mean, to put it simply, a cancer is an abnormal growth in the body, and that abnormal growth has an ability to spread to other areas of the body. And for the breast, the breast is made up of gland tissue and support tissue. And the most common type of cancer that women and some rare men will experience is abnormal tissue growth in the breast gland. There can be some other rarer growths there, but in general, it's an abnormal growth in the gland of the breast with an ability to spread. Always best when found early.
Okay. And you mentioned, Dr. Robinson, that men can get breast cancer. So is it a case where it will present itself differently when males are affected, or it's the same sort of signs that would be found? How does it affect men?
Only about 1% of breast cancer will be in the males. And with respectfully shift that over to Dr. Vidal, who sees a lot more of that than me.
Okay, Dr. Vidal?
Men and women, you can imagine men don't have regular mammographic screening, whereas a woman over the age of 40 is recommended to have it at least once every year or two. That's not the case in male. So most times male develop or detect breast cancer. It's an abnormal growth that is felt in the breast. It's really, really rare, and that's why mammograms are not recommended. Most of the cancers that are found in women are found through mammographic screening. So that's the major difference.
Okay, thank you for that. And you both touched a bit on what breast cancer is, but in terms of lifestyle, does it affect the probability of a woman or even a man developing breast cancer?
There's certainly a lifestyle modification that increases your risk. There isn't any sort of direct link, but we do know that there are certain things that you do in your life. For example, we know that a woman who has more exposure to estrogen in any form, meaning they're taking hormonal replacement therapy when they've gone through menopause, that increases your risk. A woman that has more kids tend to be more protected because they have that 9 months every time they have a baby. That is an estrogen protection or estrogen negative period of time. A woman who has early menarche, so you get your period earlier, you have a higher lifetime exposure of estrogen, or you have a later menopause. Those women tend to have a slightly higher risk from behavior modification, smoking, higher risk, alcohol utilization, and that's about 2 alcoholic beverages per night is where we see the higher risk. We do know that obesity, it's not necessarily a risk factor for developing breast cancer, but we do know women who are obese tend to have more likelihood that the treatment wouldn't work as well. And they're more likely to have higher estrogen because estrogen is also something that is produced by the fat around the body. So there are some modifications and environmental causes.
Okay, so I
And
realized.
Dr.
Yes,
If you don't
Dr.
mind me
Robinson,
cutting
go
in here,
ahead.
but Dr.
Yeah.
Vidal, I recall reading a study that exercise, like the people who exercised, I believe it came out of the UK, they had like even a 10-year delay to developing breast cancer compared to the rest of the population. Do you think it's exercise itself, or do you think it was the obesity?
So what we know about exercise, there are a few smaller studies that do link exercise and diet to all cancers. So the way I tend to think about it is we know the immune system and your body on a whole is important in preventing disease. So the more healthy your body is, the more likely you are to prevent disease. We know there are now, in terms of the immune system, we know there are immune-directed drugs that help us fight cancer. What the most important of the diet exercise data is really that we know that certain diets rich in red meat, those patients tend to have a higher risk of recurrence and poorer outcomes. But we don't have any direct link for exercise and cancer, except that we know the healthier you are, the less likelihood you are to get disease.
Okay, so based on your explanation, what we're basically saying is that though there's no direct link between a woman developing breast cancer and exercise, it is always imperative that you stay healthy. And this sort of healthiness is not only just exercise, but it's also in combination with your diet.
Thank you, well put.
Thank you. I realized that you mentioned hormones before and you're talking about estrogen. As a female, we have varying medical issues that may arise, whether you're at an age where you want to conceive or you're just a female going in for a general checkup or trying to address some sort of medical condition that you're enduring. Is it that I should feel concerned as a female when starting some sort of medication that is going to affect my hormone levels? So should I be concerned when speaking with my doctor, my gynecologist, my obstetrician, is this medication going to increase the possibility of me developing breast cancer? Is that a concern?
So it depends on what health issues we're talking about. So you always have to weigh the risk-benefit ratio. It's not every medication that's going to put you at risk. And sometimes those risks are minimal. Remember, I'm saying risk and not necessarily true development of those cancers. So direct. So for example, premenopausal woman, young girl who doesn't want to get pregnant, taking the pills, contraceptive pills, those have some estrogen, and there is a small likelihood of increased risk, very, very minimal. When you weigh the risk-benefit ratio for that woman who has abnormal bleeding, or who has pain from endometriosis, or who is sexually active and doesn't want to get pregnant, then the risk-benefit ratio favors taking the medication. And then the exposure of that medication, how long matters. For example, a woman going through menopause Hormone replacement therapy, I think the earliest studies suggest that within 2 years is a safe period, a little bit more than 2 years, and your risk had to increase a little bit slightly. We also know the type of medicine matters. Recently, there was a large study that looked at women exposed to hormone replacement therapy, be it one that has progesterone or not progesterone, and what was your risk of developing breast cancer. It looked like the pills that contain progesterone had a higher risk. And that study tended to suggest that the estrogen might have been protective, which was a little bit confusing. But definitely, it seems like progesterone in those hormone replacement therapies may be place women at higher risk. So you always, to answer your question, you always have to weigh the benefit risk ratio when you're making those decisions.
So it's basically respective to female and her body and the sort of medical illness that she's facing. So it is going to be rare that what applies to my friend or my sister or my cousin will always apply to me, because we have two different body compositions, possibly two different sort of medical illnesses. So it will be respective to female and the sort of medication that the doctor is prescribing.
That is definitely true.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Now, you mentioned before that women should start screening for breast cancer at about age 41, correct?
Or, well, 40 in the US at least.
40 in the US. So is it that the age varies in different countries, or it's just what has been publicized?
It's the data. In Europe and outside the United States, most recommendation starts at about 50 years of age, and it's yearly or every other year. 40 and 50, there is a slight increased risk for those patients. But when we look at the cost of treatment versus life lost, which is a lot of what those large studies look at, it doesn't appear to be a benefit for doing the regular mammograms between the 40 and 50 years. So in the United States, and especially developed countries that have high resources, the United States generally take the notion that if you can afford it, let's do it. And the United States Screening Preventative Task Force says between that age, have a conversation with your physician about it. But definitely 50 and onwards, every year or every other year.
Okay.
And then the other thing I wanted to throw in, if I may, is that if you've had breast cancer in the family, so for example, my wife, whose mother had breast cancer at 45, she started her breast cancer screening at 35. And so, there is an age range, like Dr. Fidel pointed out, but there is also 10 years before the youngest member in the family, whichever age comes first.
Right. And I'm going to add to that, that recommendation is based on patient at average risk. Okay. So for the average risk woman, if you have a family that is high risk, or you yourself have had breast cancers before, that changes your risk, or you have mutations, genetic mutations that put you at risk for breast cancer, those recommendations don't apply to you. You start earlier.
Okay, and Dr. Robinson, in terms of, we've heard a lot about breast self-examination. I know this is virtual, it may be a bit difficult to demonstrate, but could you just give us just a basic breakdown of how females can try to examine themselves without saying, okay, I feel a little tenderness, and it could be because of their menstruation, but then for an overthinker, they're just like, oh no, do I need to go to the doctor? Do I have breast cancer? How is it that from home I can do a self-examination to kind of put myself at ease?
Right, so I'll start off by saying, one, I will never be able to do this justice, but I will try. Let me try and position this camera here, but at the end of the day, you start off by recognizing that you know your body best. And the only way you'll know your body and to be able to tell somebody that it's different is if you're examining and you're paying attention to the signs. The other thing is that you can drop a line in the middle, right? From the, all the way down the body. And remember that there's left and right.
Yes.
And what you want to look for in the beginning is differences. And so the general rule is you're going to, again, I will try to do this to stay in the camera, but you want to put the hands on the hips and then look at yourself in the mirror, right? And you're looking to see, is there a difference in size? Is the nipple off center going in one direction or another? And so you start with that inspection, right? And then you're going to move to the other step now of raising the hands above the head. And you looking for that symmetry from side to side, trying to see, is there any dimpling, any puckering, any drainage, and then from there, if you can, right? If you're doing it outside of the shower, for a lot of women, it's easier in the shower because it's easier when it's wet. But if the other thing you want to do is you want to basically expose that area. And so if you're in the shower and standing up, you want that if the left hand is behind the head, you're going to use the right hand, and you're going to make little small. In the US, we would say quarter size. In Jamaica, old time days, 50 cents. If you're old enough to remember. Maybe a lime size, right? So you want to make sure you're covering the entire breast. And so you'll start with little circles with the pads of the fingers, the fingertips, trying to just feel for the anomalies. And you want to cover the whole area. So from the armpit all the way down to the top of the abdomen, so to speak. But you're feeling for differences as you go along, covering the whole area, and you're being methodical, right? Covering that area, going around. Then you want to do the same on the other side, right? So you just reverse, and then you'll do the other side. And you kind of, again, doing that same thing, going through the quadrants. If you divide the breast into 4, you work in those quadrants, trying to feel, and again, being methodical with those fingertips going around. And at the end of the day, you will find it first. Now, remember with the cycle, things can go up and down, but things shouldn't persist. They shouldn't persist. So when something is persistent, and when something is obviously different, it doesn't hurt to show the doctor. Again, recognize that the trickle is easier to deal with than the flood.
Yes.
The pinpoint is easier than the pea, is easier than the lime, is easier than the grapefruit. And as Dr. Vidal, I'm sure, will enlighten us later on, if we have to take something out of our body, to cut it out and not need anything else is going to be the best. But if you need the other things, then we'll bring them into play. And again, we'll come back to that, I'm sure. But recognize, again, this is the reason to find things early. The earlier you find it, the less we may have to add to the surgery to give you that chance of cure. And I will pass the baton to Dr. Vidal, who will now critique my self-breast exam.
He's done a very, very, very good job. The only thing I would add to that is, as a female, you've had your breast with you from day one. It is very important that you get to know your breast. And if there are changes occurring, you're the one who's most likely to recognize it. Don't ignore the changes. I've had patients who've seen changes and try to wish those changes away despite the growth. We don't want to do that. All right, if you see a change and you're concerned enough about it, have a professional take a look at it, okay? And the changes that Dr. Robinson spoke about. So again, you know your breast, examine your breast. Yeah. There really isn't anything. I know in my country, in Dominica, some families are dissuading their girls from touching themselves and touching their breast because of masturbation. This is not about that. This is about knowing your body and trying to recognize early signs of a disease that is highly curable when we find it early.
And then would you suggest, Dr. Vidal, that what time frame? Once a week, once a month? I mean, to me, I think of something they can easily remember, right? So you just say, look, the first of every month, just do it once a month.
Once a month, first of every month. It doesn't show that it really impacts survival for a certain population. But again, that is a population that's getting mammograms all the time. In a population where those things are not available, self-breast exam is absolutely important. So when we're looking at guidelines, especially from developed countries, we have to take that into mind, that not all the facilities that are available to a developed country is for an underdeveloped country, and therefore self-breast exam is absolutely an important part of breast cancer.
Okay, so Dr. Robinson, Dr. Vidal, in answering my questions previously, both mentioned words like doctor, physicist. If I do my self-examination and I suspect that I have breast cancer or there's something abnormal about my breasts, who should I go to? Should I just go to my general physician? Should I go to my family doctor? Who should I go to? Who's the best person to assist me?
I would go to the next practitioner that you can see, be it your general practitioner, and I don't know how we separate that from your family physician. In my mind, they're one and the same person. Anybody who can evaluate that and get you to the next step. I don't know if you can leave and just go get a mammogram, but somebody needs to look at it who is trained to give you an opinion on whether or not they think this is concerning. And if it's concerning enough for you and you don't feel that it was appropriately addressed by one person, seek out a second opinion, and make sure, because at the end of the day, it's your life that's going to be affected.
Absolutely agree. I mean, the best advocate for you is you. So I absolutely agree with you there, Dr. Vidal.
Yeah.
Okay, and before we move on, Dr. Robinson, sarcoma, it's a word that I haven't heard of before. It's a word that many of us probably haven't encountered before. What is sarcoma? How does this relate to breast cancer?
So sarcomas, I mentioned to you earlier that most cancers that we think of are abnormal growths of the glands. Stomach cancer, breast cancer, lung cancer, all glands. The sarcomas are a rare group of cancers, about 100. And they are really abnormal growths of the support tissue and support structures of the body, the connective tissue. So the bone, the fibrous tissue, the muscle. And so some of the patients I see are these rare 1% of all cancers, rare little groups that are affecting the fibrous tissue. So in the breast, for example, it might be a cancer of the blood vessel of the breast, or the muscle in the breast, or or some other structure in the skin, for example, and not the gland itself. But the adage is still the same. A lump is a lump, and so you find a lump, you go to the doctor, you get that next step. And I go back to Dr. Vidal's point. You are of age, you screen, because again, if we find something that is the size of a thimble or a pea, it'll be much better than if we find it the size of a grapefruit.
Understood. And sarcoma, breast cancer, what are the treatment options available? Does the treatment option vary depending on the stage of the breast cancer or how early it is caught? How do we choose a treatment option? How is one recommended to us by our physicians?
So go ahead. You want me to start, or you want to jump?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Right. So whether it's the sarcoma or the cancer of the gland, irrespective of which type it is, the treatment of any cancer, any abnormal growth that has the ability to spread is the same. You want to know what is the extent of that tumor. If it is confined to the breast, then you want to know, can it be surgically removed? If it can be surgically removed, you want to know if you can get a nice perimeter around the tissue to capture both the tumor you can see with the eyes and the cells you can't see, but you need the microscope. And then if the person can, depending on the type of cancer, if someone is able to remove that tumor from the breast, for example, and preserve the rest of the breast tissue, then there's again, I alluded to there may be cells you can't see to the naked eye. The surgeon is going to take out the tissue he sees and a generous rim. But if he's trying to preserve that breast, then there's a role for radiation to mop up the area, to sterilize the area and preserve that breast without having to take it.
Yeah.
And from there on, again, you alluded to something else, the stage, right?
Yes.
And the stage is influenced by the size, by have any cells crept out to lymph nodes, etc. And so this is where the other aggressive types of treatments come in that we hope to avoid, things like the chemotherapy, etc. And in Dr. Vidal's world, the hormones. Yeah. But I'll pitch it over to him. But in the simplest sense here, you know, how confined is it? How small is it? How easily can I get it out? And do I have to do anything else to prevent it from coming back? And this is what we use in our decision making for what other additive we need to the surgery.
So the only thing I would add to that is, and that may be a little bit different from how Dr. Robinson treat and I treat, is the importance of what we call systemic therapy. What that means is whenever I see a patient that I am thinking that I can cure the patient, and in breast cancer, a curable cancer is defined as a cancer that's localized to the breast. We can only fight it in the breast or in the lymph nodes right next to the breast. So that's how we define it. If we find it somewhere else, we tend to think of it as stage 4, incurable but treatable. All right. When I'm thinking of curing a patient, I am looking at it as 2 phases. 1, curing the breast, and 2, curing the rest of the body, sterilizing the rest of the body. If you think of, in general, 1 centimeter of tumor having 1 billion cells within it, and those cells need blood vessels to grow. And so they're growing in very close proximity to blood vessels. There's a good enough chance that 1 or 2 of those blood vessels could have, 1 or 2 of those cells could have escaped into the blood vessels and are circulating around the body. Now, if that has already happened and I remove the breast after, the surgery is not impacting that cell that has already escaped. So in order for me to truly cure that patient, I've done surgery and radiation and cured the breast. I also need to find that cell and kill it. Because if I left him alone, he's going to find some place to grow, and he's going to take you from a curable cancer to an incurable cancer. And that's where chemotherapy comes in. That's where hormonal therapy comes in, because it's more important. They are more focused on sterilizing the rest of the body, those cells that may have escaped, whereas surgery and radiation is most important for curing the breast.
Yeah, and I was deliberately very simple, you know, because I don't want to give the impression that all patients that come in, whether it's the rare tumors I treat or the more common tumors Dr. Vidal treats, at the end of the day, us as your oncologist who is part of the team, we're going to use the features of that. You know, you mentioned a point before that your friend's cancer is not yours. Your friend's medical condition is not yours. And so we don't practice a template medicine. What we'll do is take you, we'll take the tumor in you, and then we'll prognosticate you. We'll say, at this size, with these features, you know, here is what we need to give you the best chance of beating this. And this is where the different therapies may come into play. In Dr. Vidal's world, there may be patients that get the hormonal therapy. There may be patients that get chemotherapy. There may be both because of the risk of that cancer. In my world, there may be just surgery and with or without radiation. There may be women that I give chemotherapy to. Again, we will take each person individually. But what I want people to appreciate is, at the end of the day, the recommendation we make is the one that gives you the best chance to get as close to as normal a life as you were meant to have.
And one of the other things that's absolutely important, and I'm from Dominica, for those of you who don't know, I know some of the islands, because of resources, do not do what we think are sort of basic testing on tumors to help us determine best cure. So the estrogen, progesterone, HER2, I think those are basic. If you have had breast cancer and those 3 have not been tested, you should try your best to get them tested, because it not only determines what is the best systemic therapy for you, it also helps us determine your risk. It also helps us determine what we need to give you a best chance of cure, because we have a lot of what we call targeted therapy. What that means is getting a therapy, as Dr. Robinson says, that is specific for the specific kind of cancer that you have. And when we have those therapies, they are much better at killing the tumor when we know exactly what's causing it and we target that thing specifically.
Now, Dr. Vidal, you mentioned that in addressing whatever sort of cancer a woman or even a man may be faced with, you talked about not only addressing the breast but curing the entire body. And something that kind of came to mind when you said entire body was mental health. How important is your mindset when going to the doctor just to confirm or reject the notion that you do have breast cancer? How important is your mindset when you have to do surgery, go through radiology, treatment, chemotherapy? How important is mindset in treatment?
It is absolutely important. And I came in at the tail end of Miss Dorothy's speech, and she was talking about that mindset and the impact of that of treatments on a patient. Now let's go early on. We don't have direct evidence that somebody is more hopeful would tend to be, the chemotherapy will work better in them. What we do know is your mindset may impact your ability to finish the therapy, to get that therapy. I always think that the patients who are more active tend to do better at my type of therapy, tend to tolerate chemotherapy better. The patients who understand what the plan is and buy into it are more likely to say, all right, this is making me feel a little bad. Dr. Vidal, how can I address that feeling so that I can complete it, instead of coming to me and saying, I'm feeling bad, I'm not going to do this? Because that patient who understands what that end goal is tend to have a better idea of what I need to do to get there. Mm-hmm. Mindset's important. On the back end of it, doing things for a woman, having a mastectomy, a breast, that's so important. It's all about your sexuality. It's about you being a woman. It's about individuality. For some women, not having that there can have several severe detrimental impacts on them. So things like breast reconstruction. So we take that very seriously. Every breast cancer patient I see, I offer breast reconstruction. So that the patient may make a decision not to pursue it, but every one of them should have that opportunity, because it does impact their overall sense of well-being, sense of self, and also their family members. If they feel bad about themselves, that's going to impact their family too. So that's the mental aspect of it is absolutely important. And a lot of my patients see a psychologist along with my treatment, just to talk sometimes, or a social worker, just to have a conversation about what's going on with them.
And finally, just to get Dr. Robinson's perspective, how often, Dr. Robinson, do you have to recommend therapy or some sort of counseling session for your patients? Dr. Vidal mentioned that he recommends that his patients, in collaboration with seeing him, seek some sort of therapy or speak to a social worker. How often, Dr. Robinson, do you have to recommend a patient to counseling or therapy?
So again, it comes down to the resources you have. And so I've been blessed with riches, really, at my institution. Mm-hmm. And so the cancers I see tend to be, again, the rare cancers of the support structures. And again, this is the breast, so the support structures of the breast versus the gland structure that Dr. Vidal sees. But my patients tend to be younger. I see a lot of young patients, the average age for the breast gland cancer will be in the 60s, although you'll see the wide range. For me, my cancers are 40s to 50s, right? And so we do have a clinical social worker who is a part of our team, and we actually, when we are seeing our patients, we actually have what we call a distress meter.
Yes.
And they will, in addition to getting their vital signs, we actually record how stressed are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10. And we'll be guided by that to reflex, not just with our clinical social worker, but also to have a low threshold to bring in a cancer psychologist. At the end of the day, what we don't want people to feel is like they are alone.
Yes.
They have the support of the medical team, they have the support of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think that it ties into the question that Dr. Vidal says about the mental state. One thing that I find is that a lot of my patients, whether it's male or female, once the structure of the body is being changed, it impacts who they are and their self-confidence. And they believe that their partner or their family won't like them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because when you get both in the room and it comes out, the partner will say, honey, I'm married to you. I'm not married to that part of your body. I care about you. And it's amazing when they have that support psychologically, how much it helps. Long and short of it is, if the resource is there, we should utilize it, because the definition of health, as you pointed out, is not just the physical.
Yes.
And that mental health support doesn't only have to be from a psychologist, a psychiatrist, your pastor, your friends, your family members, someone you can sit down and talk to about what's going on, and just have a sounding board. Sometimes somebody just to listen. So you can utilize those resources also.
Okay, so this would conclude our session, and I want to thank you both on behalf of myself, Miss Wilson, our faculty's representative, the Faculty of the Social Sciences, for just taking the time out to come and speak to us. And what I can say that my major takeaway from this session is that early detection is key in terms of treating breast cancer. It is important to examine at home, and it is also important, if unfortunately you're diagnosed with some form of breast cancer, that you seek support, whether it is professionally or from friends or family members. So again, we'd like to thank you both. Please do stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me again.
No
Hopefully
problem.
next time it's in person.
Yes. Hopefully. We'd love that.
And I echo those sentiments exactly. I mean, this has been a privilege and an honor, and we're just here to help.
And we appreciate it 110%. Thank you again, both.
Alright. So ladies and gentlemen and warriors, we've heard the stories, we've had the conversation, and now it's time for us to celebrate the warriors in true Tiger style. And so first thing first, we're introducing all the gentlemen allies here tonight, who will be doing a special piece for all you pink warriors out there. First, we have a final year management student who reigns on the Taylor Hall. Ladies, gentlemen, warriors, give it up for Mr. Emil.
Kilometers. I don't come kilometers. I don't walk that many kilometers. Learn from the teacher. I don't take for the game, she no pitas. I decide bad mind from a distance. Not this sweet, I be all on my pitas. Oh, Doguni Misha, show you the confirm for your speaker. This time I call chopsticks for assistance. Show we they blow your mind, Afghanistan. Kilometers. I don't come kilometers. I don't walk that many kilometers. Learn from the teacher. I don't take for the game, she no pitas. I decide bad mind from a distance. Not this sweet, I be all on my pitas. When you come, make I give you digits. When's the last time somebody did it like this? Too much ice on my bumper clap wrist. That's why everybody hating on me like Chris. Kilometers. I don't come kilometers.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that was Emil giving us his dance performance, his respect to the Pink Warriors out there in the battlefield. But we're not done yet. We just give you some nice dance moves for you to watch and admire. But now we want you to hear the words that we're about to say to you. We want you to feel what we're feeling when we speak to you. And as such, we introduce to you the second gentleman ally for the Pink Warriors, Mr. Tyreek JTB McLean.
Strength is the capacity to withstand whatever pressures you're going through. Courage is the ability to face it head on. Today, I'm imploring you to fight the fight, no matter your circumstance. Fight on, Pink Warrior.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Tyreek JTB McLean. I'm just here to say that the Gentlemen Ally of the Pink Warriors are some very talented individuals. With that being said, let me introduce to you the Pink Rebels.
Me didn't notice. Yeah, like
one thing I've got to say, you better not trouble this man. My fears have gone away out of Babylon, for I've already paid for the wrongs that I've done. So I can safely say I am Rasta son, yeah. On Judgment Day I'll be playing music for the rebels. Roots rock reggae music playing sweet in heaven. On Judgment Day I'll be playing music for the rebels. Roots rock reggae music playing sweet in heaven. Foolish man built up his house upon the sand, but Rasta man built up his temple on a firm foundation. Sinners, know you better know yourself, yeah. Don't sit aside and criticize. Come on and help yourself. On Judgment Day I'll be playing music for the rebels. Roots rock reggae music playing sweet in heaven. On Judgment Day I'll be playing music for the rebels. Roots rock reggae music playing sweet in heaven.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Pink Rebels. And we're moving on from the Pink Rebels, and we have a very special gentleman to introduce to you this evening. Final year, okay. Alright then. Final year linguistic and language education student and the president of the Irving Performing Arts Society. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tajay Henry.
You shout it out, but I can't hear a word you say. You're talking loud, not saying much. I'm criticized, but all your bullets ricochet. Shoot me down, but I get up. I'm bulletproof, nothing to lose. Fire away, fire away. Ricochet, you take your aim. Fire away, fire away. You shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium. Shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium. You raise your voice, but it's you who have further to fall. Goes down, honey love. You cut me down, sticks and stones may break my bones. I'm talking loud, not saying much. Fire away, ricochet, tell them take them. Fire away, this may shoot you down, but you won't fall. You are titanium, shoot you down, no you won't fall. You are titanium, yeah. Machine guns firing at the ones who run. Stone heart, bulletproof glass. Shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium. Shoot you down, no you won't fall. Yeah. You can beat it, shoot you down, no you won't fall, cause you are titanium. Yeah, you are titanium. Shoot you down, titanium.
Welcome back, Tigers. Welcome back, Pelicans, to segment 3 of our Pink Lemonade and Warriors initiative. Now, today we'll be doing our cocktail hour, and we have a few representatives from the guild. These are our hall representatives, and we're going to give them just a little time to introduce themselves, starting with this young man right here.
Hi, good afternoon, Tigers. Good afternoon, Pelicans. My name is Jeffrey Thomas, your regional hall chair.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shazma Gomes, the Leslie Robinson Hall chairperson.
Thank you, love.
I'm Ben Griffin, the Executive for Hall chairman.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Watson, the Aston Preston Hall chairwoman. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Richard, and I'm the Mary C. Covesty Hall chair.
Alright, so for this particular section of our Pink Lemonade and Warriors Social, we'll be having the hall representatives make for us their very own special pink cocktail. Now it's simple. All hall representatives will be blindfolded. We'll be handing them the ingredients for the cocktail, and they are supposed to decide what amount they want to add to their signature blend. After that, they're going to remove their blindfolds, take their test, and Shan will be the judge to see who made the best cocktail blindfolded. Hall reps, are you ready? Yeah. Alright then, please put on your blindfold. Right now, to prevent them from cheating, we're going to put all the ingredients in a similar cup and pass them along so that they don't know which one is different. We're relying on the hall representatives to use their own, thank you, to determine which one of these particular liquid should be added in what quantity. So let's go, Shan.
Hall chairs, are you ready?
Yeah.
Alright, so Shan will be passing the first ingredient around. Each person is to pour their respective amount in their cup, and it will go along the lines until it reaches to me. So Shan, go right ahead with the first ingredient. Okay, we're relying on the hall chairs.
Your cup is right here. Go ahead and pour it. That's it?
Wait.
No.
I can't pour it back? Yes.
All right, pour it back.
You can pour it back. But once it has left your hand, you're no longer allowed to do any more pouring.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. Okay, give me a hand. And yeah. So you can go ahead and pour. Thank you. You ready? Okay, here you go. No, you can't smell it. Come, please pour.
No, mama, pour.
It's vitamin. That's it? Thank you.
We have more.
Finished? Okay. Then you the cup is right here. No, you haven't poured any as yet. You poured some. That's all you want to pour? You want to pour more? Okay, thank you.
Alright then, and I will be handing over the next ingredient to the hall chairs. Yes. So you can tilt it now. Remember that once you've poured, you can no longer do any more changing because the liquids are now mixed. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I just said. That's okay. That's okay.
Denver.
That's okay. We can always refill.
Just refill that one.
Okay. Then what? Would you like some more of the first? Say liquid. Go ahead then, Bob.
No corresponding.
Thank you, Denver. We're coming over to Genevieve. Genevieve, lift your hand. No, Genevieve. All right, there you go. Yeah, that's your cup. Go ahead.
You haven't poured any. You haven't poured any.
Is that all you want to pour?
You're pouring no.
Okay.
That's all you
So
want
that's
to
it?
pour? You can't pour it back in the cup.
All right, then, and finally to Jenny. Okay. And then Shine will now be handing the second to last ingredient.
Okay, this is your cup. And this is the other ingredient. You can go ahead and pour.
Oh, what is?
Pour it.
Hold on there. Hold on.
Please
I forgot
pour
what the
it.
ingredients were.
Please pour the ingredients.
Okay.
Ladies, gentlemen, and warriors, we want to remind you that
pouring?
our hall reps
No.
are making the perfect pink cocktail.
pouring?
It's pouring now. It's pouring. You're not pouring anymore.
I don't know how much I poured. Okay.
Thank you. Ready? You can go ahead and pour. Go on. Alright, there you go.
Alright, there it's pouring.
Yeah, it's pouring. It's pouring, it's pouring, it's pouring, it's pouring. Stopped pouring. That's it? Or you want to add more? No problem. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Okay, it's pouring. Okay, it stopped. That's it? Thank you. Mr. Denver. Yes, it's pouring. It's still pouring. Still pouring. Still pouring. Still pouring. Still pouring. Haven't stopped. You're still going. That's all you want to add, or you want to add more? Yes, it's pouring. Still pouring. You're still pouring. You want to add more? Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, your turn. It hasn't started pouring. Tilt it more. Tilt it. Okay, it's pouring now. It's pouring. That's all you want to add? Or you want to add more? No, it's not pouring as yet. Still not pouring. Okay, there you go. It's pouring. That's all you want to add? You don't want to add any more? Okay, thank you. Okay, Jenny. Okay. Okay, there you go. And tilt the cup to start pouring. I will. It's not pouring. Tilt it more. It's still not pouring. Still not pouring. Okay, there you go. That's all you want to add? No, it's not pouring. Your hand is away from the cup. Tilt it. Keep tilting. Keep tilting. Keep tilting. Keep tilting. Tilt it some more. Tilt it a little bit more. A little bit more. Just keep tilting. Keep tilting that nothing is coming out of the cup. Alright, there you go. It's pouring now.
Okay.
That's it? I don't want to add any more. Yes, it did go inside.
Alright, ladies, gentlemen, and warriors, I will be handing to Jeffrey the final ingredient to finalize their perfect pink cocktail.
It's been pouring.
What? Yeah, it's been pouring. We'll be handing over to Shajani to make her pour. Let's see if Shajani makes the same judgment as
Jeffrey.
Nah, hold on. Because now, wait, no, hold on.
Relax, it's okay. Relax.
I should relax. Are you a drink this? Go ahead, Shajani.
No, it's not pouring.
Oh, you're listening. Oh, no.
Keep tilting.
Keep tilting. It's starting to pour. Oh, Jesus, it's starting to pour.
It's still pouring. You want to add more or that's it?
We're going to hand it over to Denver. Let's see if Denver will make the same judgment as Shajani. And no Denver.
Pouring.
It's pouring. It's been pouring. Denver, my bad. Denver, at this point, your cup is almost full. And we're going to be handing it to Jenny. No, it hasn't been pouring on you. Okay. Oh, it's pouring.
Yes, it's pouring.
It's ish. All right, now it's pouring. Yeah, now it's pouring. All right, here's my hand. Thank you. And finally, Jenny will be ending it off with her addition. Yeah, go ahead. It's pouring, sorry, it's been pouring. Amazing. Love it. No, you can't get more. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. The hall representatives have added all 4 and 5 of their ingredients. We're gonna invite the hall representatives to gently mix their cup by turning it around so the flavors can combine. Lovely. Gorgeous.
Okay.
All
Is
right.
everybody comfortable done stirring? Are you finished stirring? Okay, we're going to ask you all now to take off your blindfolds. Is everybody satisfied with the drink that is in front of them? Okay, and we're going to ask everyone to just reach for the empty cup in front of them and pour some of your cocktail in it for tasting and judging.
That's enough, Deborah.
And before the judging commences, we're going to ask the hall chairs to judge their own drinks, well, cocktails.
Let's start with Jenny. Yes, Jenny. So we're inviting you to take off your mask and taste it and tell us how sweet your cocktail is.
I really like it. It's really refreshing. It's not too much rum. I use a light shade of pink, so the pink is still there, and it's still there. And I'm tasting the Sprite. So can I rate myself?
Yes, out of 5.
5 out of 5.
So out of 5, Genevieve has rated her drink 5.
All right, Genevieve, go ahead. Let's see your full face, Genevieve. Genevieve, we have not seen. Let's get another sip, shall we? We need to see how you feel about yours. So go ahead, Jenny. How would you describe your cocktail?
It's very nice.
And how much would you rate it out of 5?
I don't think it's a presumptuous somebody says
Okay.
So we have a 4 out of 5 Tigers and Pelicans.
Going on to Denver. Denver, please take a sip of your cocktail and tell us what you think. So Denver is giving his own
5 out of 5.
Shashini. I would love for you to taste yours and tell us what you think. It's giving you the lemonade vibes. About a 4.5 out of 5. And last but not least, Jeffrey, go ahead and
I can smell the lemon.
you can smell.
I'm right there with you, but it's giving vodka.
It's giving vodka.
It's giving vodka.
4.5.
A 4.5 out of 5. So ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. We have a 5, a 4, a full 5, a 4.5, and a 4.5. Now for the real grades, we're going to invite Shine to first try Geneviève's and tell us what you think. So Geneviève said that hers was a 5 out of 5. She said not too much. And it's all to perfection.
So I'm not tasting any sort of lemonade flavor. It's just giving me a vodka and lime. So out of 5, I give you a 2.
Alright, Shine, so go ahead and try for Geneviève's. Judgmental. I think you said, Johnny. You said. The only reason you're not giving yourself 5 is because you don't want me to boast you. That must sound like punch.
Let me tell you, it's not even the rum enough. It's the lime. There's more lime than anything else in it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna allow Cheyenne to wash her mouth and come back for some more 4 out of 5 lemon. How should I give Jenny out of 5?
0.
And then we have Denver who said a big 5 out of 5, 5-star hotel type of serving. It's a confidence for me.
Presentation.
Thank you, sir.
It's giving strength and resilience. Go ahead, Cheyenne.
So I do like this one, but I have one problem. It's giving lemonade, but it's not giving me cocktail vibes. So I'll give you a 4 out of 5.
Not bad, not bad. All right, then, Shashini.
Okay. So it's just lemonade and more so of the sour. Not getting any sweet. I'm not getting any vodka, no sort of alcoholic flavor going on from this. So it's a 2 from me.
Out of a 4.5, that's a 2. Last but not least, we have Jeffrey, who gave himself a 4.5 out of 5.
I live where I live, not because of Jeffrey. Okay. I like it, but it's not giving me lemonade. It gives me cocktail, but it's not giving me lemonade cocktail. So unfortunately, that's going to be a 3.5 out of 5.
Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, it is official. The 5-star serving of pink lemonade is actually the 5-star serving of pink lemonade. And so let's have a round of applause for Jennifer for making this signature cocktail. And we want to say thank you to all the hall representatives who came out to support our Pink Lemonade and Warriors initiative. Thank you. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the hall section, pink cocktail section. And we'll see you with our closing remarks very soon. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
The Faculty of Social Sciences Guild Committee
and the Guild External Affairs Committee
wishes to express our wholesome gratitude to the special individuals who made this event a success. To the Pink Warriors, Miss Janet Carew, Miss Stacey Hines, and Miss Dorothy Satchel, thank you for sharing your story.
We want to say thank you to Dr. Gregory Vidal and Dr. Stephen Robinson, our medical experts for the night.
We also want to hail our gentlemen allies for participating in this event. Mr. Tariq JTB McLean, Emil, Mr. Tajay Henry, the Pink Rebels, Joseph McLean, and Karim Medley.
We want to thank the hall chairs who contributed to the activity and made this night complete.
We also want to say thank you to Ms. Sharon Galab for working alongside yours truly in moderating this special event.
We want to acknowledge the efforts of the crew behind the camera and say thank you to Mr. Shaquille Ramsey, our videographer, and Mr. Davario Brown, our editor.
We also want to say thank you to the crew behind the scenes, Mr. Deshaun Cook, Mr. Tariq Smith, Miss Jenny Richards, and the EAC decor team.
To you, our amazing audience who tuned in with us tonight, this wouldn't be complete without you.
Remember, the Faculty of Social Sciences will be donating all proceeds to the Janet Carew Breast Cancer Foundation, and as such, we encourage you to purchase a lemonade and play your part. Cheers!